Part 33. Dressed as a mother-in-law, she leads the whole family to turn over. Author, Bamboo Fence Tea. Chapter 321. Chapter 321 Goose Warning. Chi Yuyan's eyes flickered, he cursed Zhong Mian in his heart, and he hesitated on his face. Chi Yuan's heart sank slightly, she gritted her teeth and knelt down. Grandma, this matter really has nothing to do with us. It's a member of the Qi family who works in the boat shop, a man named Qi Guangsheng. He owed a lot of money to the gambling house, so he took the idea to Mian. As for his cousin, his plan failed and he was killed instead. Other clan members were also implicated by him in order to clean up the aftermath for Qi Guangsheng. There were many passengers on the boat at that time. This incident had a great impact on the Qi family boating business and even shaken its foundation. My father was extremely busy and had no resources to spare. It happened that the Huang family broke off the engagement at this stall. We, brother and sister, had no choice but to go alone. Come and ask Grandma for help. Wanner swears that if anything I say is false, I will be struck by lightning and die. Chi Yuan dared to swear such a strong oath. How could Xi's mother-in-law and daughter-in-law doubt what she said? They frowned deeply at that moment. Mrs. Gu's clear eyes swept over the Chi Yuan brothers and sisters, and said thoughtfully, what is the reason for the Huang family to break off the engagement? She immediately looked at Chi Yuan. Why don't you tell me in detail? Chi Yuan's eyes flickered, and his voice was light and weightless. It is said that the Qi family is dishonest, avoids the important and hides the truth. She was stunned for a moment, his eyes rolled back and forth, and he murmured with an unkind expression, is the Huang family referring to what your mother did back then or this boat trip? They are all there, how could Qi Yuyan know so much? Ever since the incident at the boat trip, he had been unlucky, so how could he have so much time to think about it? Hearing this, Mrs. Gu curled her lips mockingly, but remained silent. Mrs. Pei immediately applied eye drops to Mrs. Shi. Mom, I think the eldest sister-in-law still holds a grudge against the younger sister-in-law. Mian is also hostile to the Qi family and you. I'm afraid she said what she should and shouldn't say in front of Mrs. Huang. Everything was said. Qi Yuan was filled with hatred in her heart, but more than anything, she was jealous. How could Zhong Mian still be protected by the Guanzhenhou mansion when she was in trouble, but now their brother and sister had to humble themselves and beg for help for the sins their parents had done. This Mrs. She pulled Qi Yuan distressedly and asked her to sit next to him. He clapped her hands from time to time and told the nanny beside him, go and get my box of gadgets for my cousin. The things that Qi Yuyan's biological mother did were not tolerated by the world. Not only the Qi family, but also the Fan family tried to hide it. Unexpectedly, they even came to the capital to talk about their marriage, but they still couldn't hide it. She was so angry that she clenched her fists and banged her teeth on the table. What on earth does that girl want to do? Does she have to destroy her cousin for the rest of her life to be satisfied? How can she be so vicious? But no matter how much she held a grudge in her heart, she remained calm on her face. She covered her face with a handkerchief and cried, Grandma, it's all our fault. Our cousin is angry with us and we accept it? But when is the time to repay grievances? My granddaughter wants to see my cousin, apologize to her, and beg my cousin for forgiveness. If my cousin is willing to show off, and if I go to the Huang family and explain it clearly, will there be room for redemption? The two sisters-in-law looked at each other. Mrs. Gu had no special reaction, but Mrs. Pei had a dissatisfied look on her face and was reluctant to leave. Waiting for the things to be brought over, she said slowly, here are 2 sets of pearl heads and masks for you. Gu was a little surprised. Qi Yuan was the first to say, Grandma, this set is for cousin Mian. It's not suitable for me. She was so angry at Zhong Mian today that he was so willful that he didn't care, that little white-eyed wolf can only be angry with me, So what's left for her? It's all for you. Chi Yuan blushed and took the things away with an expression of great hospitality. Chi Yuan beside him became a little anxious when he saw that Mr. Shi had not reached the point after talking for a long time. Grandma, please help me. If there is no such thing as the Huang family, my father's side. Because of his mother's relationship, his father also had some opinions about their siblings. The Fan family didn't dare to say anything. If his marriage failed this time, his father would definitely abandon them decisively. Why panic? I heard that the Huang family wanted to marry the Bai family before, but the Bai family looked down on the Huang family's second wife and didn't nod. Later, something happened to the Bai family, but the Huang family escaped. Now the Huang family and the engagement of the Qi family has not been widely publicized, and very few people in Beijing know about it. If we make a big noise about it, the Huang family will not easily regret the engagement unless they lose the girl's reputation. Old God, she said. The Qi brothers and sisters were overjoyed and tried their best to please Mr. Shi. Ms. Pei looked on with cold eyes and said, neither salty nor cool, the old lady is still awesome. Mr. Gu frowned, feeling uneasy. She always felt that Mr. Shi would cause trouble, so she told the matter to the second son of the Fan family when she got back. Mom is getting more and more confused as she gets older. I asked you to persuade me about Mian back then. No matter what we do in the middle, we can't do anything wrong. We can't control it. Mom said that the little girl just lost her head temporarily. We can't just watch her ruin things. After half a lifetime, the outcome was good. She came forward and offended the Zhou family. Dad couldn't even ask for help from the Zhou family when he had something to do, but my mother didn't know it yet and kept saying she was right. She also said that my eldest sister-in-law doesn't show sisterly love. I can't bear that kind of thing happening to me. Mother is so self-righteous, and this time she is plotting against the Huang family for the sake of the Qi family. The Huang family is not the Zhou family. It really people off. How can they still be kind to you? Do you remember what Mr. Huang did in Kuzhu Mansion before? Maybe he still has something in his hand that others don't know about, but he just weighed the pros and cons and didn't take it out. I have heard that he will be back soon, and the affairs of Yun's mansion will soon be settled. What are you doing to provoke that cold-faced evil at this time? Fan Ziquan was so frightened by Gu's words that his hair stood on end, and he leaned forward. So Huang Zhenyang really has something from Kuzhu Prefecture in his hand. Gu rolled her eyes angrily and lowered her eyes. My father works in the Ministry of Justice. He was also involved in such a big case in Kuzhu Prefecture. He must know more than others. I also overheard him when I went back to my parents' house. I told my elder brother a little bit, and I don't know the specific situation, but no matter what, Huang Zhenyang is a popular person in front of the emperor, so it is best for us not to offend. Fan Ziquan nodded repeatedly. Madam, what you said makes sense. This matter really cannot be left to my mother's side, but she may not be able to listen to what I say. My eldest brother has always been secretly competing with Huang Zhenyang, and neither of them will be convinced. I remind you that I'm afraid that I'm going to destroy my family's prestige, so I guess I don't care, so I might as well tell my father. But my father had already angered my mother because of the Qi family incident, and was very cold towards her. If this matter escalated again, with my father's temperament, I might even have my mother imprisoned in Zhuangzi. Although I don't agree with my mother's actions, I can't just watch my mother being punished by my father. Dressed as a mother-in-law, she leads the whole family to turn over. Author, Bamboo Fence Tea. Chapter 322. Chapter 322 Banquet at Prince Rui's Mansion. Mrs. Gu rolled her eyes secretly when she saw Fan Ziquan pacing anxiously alone. I think I still need to tell my eldest brother about this matter, but don't mention Huang Zhenyang. Just say that the Qi family is unreasonable and mother is partial, and then mention the Zhou family and Guanzhenhou mansion. I believe that the eldest brother will not act on his own initiative. Yes, yes, that's it. Fans Hequan hurriedly left the yard. At this time, Fans Hiran, the eldest son of the Fan family, was very angry because Prince Rui recognized his son. He was thinking about how to write a book. When he saw his younger brother coming in a panic, he frowned unconsciously and reprimanded him in a low voice. How old are you? You are so reckless. Hey, brother, it's almost imminent, why aren't you in a hurry? Fans Hequan sat down opposite Fans Hiran, breathing heavily. Fans Hiran put down his pen and stared at him with displeasure. Tell me, did the sky fall or were you demoted? Fans Hequan was furious. Brother, you can't just hope that I will be better. Forget it, let's just tell you. It has something to do with our two nieces and nephews who came to visit us. Yuan? What did they do? Could it be that the Huang family hasn't dealt with it yet? Fans Hiran frowned. In his opinion, although the Qi family is not as rich as the Huang family's second wife, it is still the richest in Kuzhu Prefecture. It's not better than the others, and the Qi family is related to the Zhong family and the Fan family. The eldest member of the Huang family is an official in the court and is at the same level as him. There is nothing superior about him. It is really outrageous to go back on his words like this. Fans Hequan told everything he had learned. Now it is Mian who has told the Huang family what the little girl did. It is understandable that the Huang family regrets the marriage for the sake of the girl's future, but my mother doesn't think so. She scolded Mian in the main courtyard and came up with a bad idea, planning to spread the word about the marriage and force the Huang family to submit. If one of us doesn't get this right, our family and the Huang family will have a deadly feud. Huang Zhenyang is a lunatic who doesn't want his life. Who knows if he has anything to do with the Qi family? If he is really driven to a panic, he will. Who can guarantee that the Qi family will not be killed? Fans Hequan was about to speak, but Fans Hiran interrupted him. Don't worry. When Huang Zhenyang investigated the Kuzhu Prefecture case, everything was handed over and he didn't cover it up for anyone. Your worries are just unfounded. Since mother wants to help you Yan, as an uncle, it is not easy for me to stop him, lest I be hated by my nephew. All the dignitaries who received the invitations entered this mansion early in the morning that they were curious about but had never entered before. Fans Hequan didn't understand that he came to ask his elder brother for help, but not only did it have no effect, but he was scolded so much that he became confused and forgot his original intention. The same to you. If you have this free time to worry about other people's affairs, it is better to think more about how to get promoted. If you fail the assessment next year, you will see how your father will punish you. Zhang En was dressed in brocade clothes and put on a jade crown under the service of his servants, but he felt uncomfortable anywhere in his body. Zhang Ning looked at his freshly dressed brother and sighed. It is said that people rely on clothes, and Buddha relies on gold. Brother, if you dress like this, my mother and sister-in-law may not recognize who you are in front of you. In a blink of an eye, the day came for the guests to attend a banquet at Prince Rui's mansion. Little sister, do I really want to dress like this? It is said that Prince Rui's mansion is the #1 palace in the capital. In the past, they all thought it was just hearsay and exaggeration. But when they really arrived here, they saw what Zulu carved railings and layered pavilions meant. For a while, they only showed the flowers to all the noble people in the capital. Blinded. Fans Hiran touched his chin and pondered what Fans Hequan said. He was not in a hurry. Zhang En was very embarrassed by the praise and asked eagerly, can we go back to Kuzhu after today? Zhang Ning shook his head and reassured, don't worry, this matter needs to be discussed carefully with Mr. Rui. After all, he saved your life. Mr. Rui has a high position and treats you like his own son. You need to treat him like your own. Father, everything must be carefully discussed with Mr. Rui before making a decision, do you understand? She doesn't want to say something too straightforward, she just hopes that her silly big brother can enlighten her. Zhang obviously didn't understand what she meant. He just nodded heavily and patted his chest to assure her, "Don't worry, little sister, I will definitely treat my godfather as filial to me as my father." Zhang Ning really had nothing to do with Zhang An and let him go. The two of them came out of the yard, stood side by side, and behaved intimately. They had just entered the garden. All the guests were dumbfounded. Many ladies found out that Prince Rui's godson was a beggar before and was alone in the family. They also brought out the concubine of the family, thinking that if they could catch this man's eye, the family would rise to the top in one step. Who knew that before they took action, they would be widely known again? Inho got there first. Many people looked at Zhang Ning wrongly. Mrs. Zheng, the Duke of Dingguo, was also accompanied by two concubines. Seeing this scene, everyone was dumbfounded. She subconsciously moved closer to the old lady and whispered, "Mother, Mrs. Guanzhenho is here." The old lady glared at her and said, "Don't make blind guesses about wooing. If you don't understand, just ask later." At this time, Mrs. Fan Shi also came over with her two daughters-in-law and the Qi family brothers and sisters. Mrs. Pei glanced at the Yingying Yanyan in the garden, and joked with Mrs. Shi, "Mother, I heard that King Rui valued this godson very much. He even made an exception to hold a flower appreciation banquet for this godson, and even the people in the palace noble people will show up. It's a pity that we don't have a suitable girl in our family. Otherwise, I would bring her here to join in the fun with them. If she can fall in the eyes of King Rui's godson, it will be considered a great blessing." Gu pointed to Zhang Ning, who was sitting with Zhang An not far away. "Sister-in-law, please see who that is first." Mrs. Pei took a closer look and her eyes widened in disbelief. "Marquis Guanzhen? When did that woman become so close to King Rui's godson? She is not afraid of King Xiaoyao." "Sister-in-law, be careful what you say." Mrs. Gu stopped Ms. Pei, who had no idea what to say. When she saw Zhang Ning, she thought of the humiliation she suffered from Zhou Mian that day, and was filled with displeasure. Qi Yuan, who was behind her, suddenly pointed at a round table not far from Zhang Ning. "Grandma, isn't that cousin Mian?" Only then did the three people of the Shi family realize that Zhou Mian was sitting among a group of little girls. Because there were all little girls on the other side, it was inappropriate for them to be elders in the past. Shishi then whispered, "Wan'er, come over and play, and get to know more ladies in the capital. If anyone asks you about the purpose of coming to the capital, just tell the truth." She had been thinking about making Qi Yuan and Huang Rou's marriage public before, but she never found a suitable opportunity. After all, it was not easy to do such a thing too blatantly. It happened that Prince Rui's mansion held a flower viewing party, and she also had the opportunity to make it fair and just. This matter was revealed. Gu wanted to persuade her, but out of the corner of her eye she saw Pei looking like she was watching a good show. She could only hold it in, thinking that she was just the second wife of the Fan family. Even if the sky fell, she and Pei would be there to support her. No hurries. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Dressed as a mother-in-law, she leads the whole family to turn over. Author, Bamboo Fensti. Chapter 323. Chapter 323 Princess Longjio shows off her power. Qi Yuan lowered her head and saw that she was wearing the fashionable lotus red hooded iwax print pleated skirt in Kuzhu today. Her upper body was a small group brocade shawl filled with light blue and red brocade, which was given to her by Shi. A set of pearl hair and face, although not as gorgeous as some of the ladies around me, but not too shabby either. Thinking about it like this, Qi Yuan took a deep breath and slowly walked towards Zhou Mian with a decent smile. "Cousin Zhou." Zhou Mian was talking witty words to Yang Xiao and Yang Xiahua. When he heard the noise, he turned his head suddenly, and his face darkened visibly. She had been paying attention to the movements over there, and naturally she did not miss the change in Zhou Mianmian's expression. She immediately fell down in anger. Look. What is the expression of that stinky girl? Is she trying to bully Wan'er? Mrsku advised, Mom. There are all ladies over there, and there are so many maids and women watching. It will be okay. You don't have to keep watching. How can it be done if I don't keep an eye on her? What if Wan'er suffers a loss? She glared at Gu Shi bitterly. Gu was speechless and shut up angrily. As soon as Qi Yuan walked down the steps, Zhou Mianmian stood up. She subconsciously touched the pearl hairpin on her head and stepped forward warmly. Cousin Zhou, it's really you. I thought I was wrong just now. Why are you here? I didn't even go to my grandfather's house in the capital, so I didn't even know you were in the capital. Hearing this, the ladies around him looked at Zhou Mianmian with a slightly strange look. Zhou Mianmian smiled nonchalantly and said, Miss Qi, our two families have been divorced for a long time. Please don't have any random relations. My family has a place to stay in the capital. The elders in the family have not spoken yet, so naturally I will not do anything to myself. I think there are only some people who have settled down and rushed to the Fan family as soon as they entered Beijing. Her personal maid Ying'er couldn't help but said, Miss Zhou, Our Lady is just saying hello to you. Even if you don't like Our Lady, you don't have to ridicule her like this. Please be so noble and don't embarrass my lady. Yang Xiao didn't want to ruin today's events, so she stood up and talked with Zinni. Mian, where did we just talk about? Qi Yuan was angry and cried. Haha. Who taught this rule? The master didn't say anything, but the maid spoke first. Princess Lanjiao said calmly. Zhou Mian walked down Yang Xiao's ladder, hummed softly, and returned to his seat. Other ladies present looked at Qi Yuan unkindly. Qi Yuan was a little helpless. When she was in Kuzhu Prefecture, no matter whose flower viewing party she attended, she would never be ignored like this. As long as she showed weakness and pretended to be pitiful, someone would always speak for her. Why is it different today? Qi Yuan didn't expect Zhou Mianmian to be so sharp-tongued, not to follow the rules, and not to give her any face. She is not willing to give in. Thinking of what she just explained, Qi Yuan took a deep breath, stepped forward, and said loudly with Zhou Mianmian, Cousin, I know you are angry, but there is something I still want to tell my grandmother. In a few days, my eldest brother and Huang Mischia's engagement, you must come. Miss Huang family, Princess Lanjiao was a little confused. There were not many adults named Huang in Beijing, but only a few. How could she not know such a girl? Qi Yuan was waiting for this question, and she said respectfully, That's Huang Ro, the niece of Mr. Zhuoju censor. Princess Lanjiao was furious, and stood up by slapping the table. How dare you? Qi Yuan didn't know what she said wrong, and was so frightened that she knelt down with a plop, silent as a cicada, and she was about to cry, so pitiful. Zhou Mianmian and the other two people also looked confused. She rushed over immediately, glanced at the people present, suppressed his anger and stepped forward to plead for Qi Yuan, I'm paying homage to Princess Lanjiao. I wonder what my granddaughter did to make the princess so angry. Princess Lanjiao was still looking at Qi Yuan with an angry look on her face. She was a little unable to get off the stage, so she pointed her gun at Zhou Mianmian. Mian, your cousin just arrived in the capital and doesn't know the rules. As her cousin, how can you just stand by and watch? Me, Zhou Mianmian laughed angrily, she is not related to me, so why should I help her? Besides, she is so old, and she has to be responsible for whatever she does or says. We can't be shameless like her. Just like your mother, if she gets into trouble, just point at her elders and wipe her ass. You are presumptuous. Mr. Shi became angry and reprimanded sternly. The sounds in the garden gradually faded away, and everyone moved closer. Mrs. Pei pretended to be accommodating to Mr. Shi, and taught Zhong Mian a lesson together. Mian, this is your grandmother. How can you ignore your filial piety by contradicting your own grandmother like this? After all, the Zhong family is also a scholarly family with a century of history. How could they teach you such a thing? Girl. Zhang Ning couldn't listen and walked over slowly. As an elder, Mrs. Fan's remarks are biased. People in the world value filial piety, and there is a distinction between filial piety and filial piety. At least you must not be foolish. When Mian was kidnapped by her aunt, the Zhong family wanted to file a police report. Mrs. Fan was partial to her youngest daughter, so she ignored her granddaughter's injustice and traveled thousands of miles from the capital to Kuzhou Prefecture to force the Zhong family to give up the report. Official. Isn't it normal to have resentment in your heart? Mrs. Fan avoids important matters and only talks about what happened here without telling the slightest reason. Is this the style of the Fan family, a scholarly family? Pei didn't expect that Zhang Ning would confront her like this for a girl like Zhong Mian, and expose the scandal of their Fan family in public. She clenched her fists with hatred, tugged the corners of her mouth, and explained vaguely, Master Ho, these are old things. Although the Zhong family did not report to the official, my unlucky sister-in-law was severely punished by the Qi family and is still locked up in Zhuangzi and has never returned home. Ha ha ha, Zhong Mian laughed mockingly, locked in the Zhuangzi? Are you talking about the Zhuangzi where the Qi family built a gorgeous house on the outskirts of Kuzhou? Let me tell you, there are not only thousands of acres of fertile land in that Zhuangzi, but also a large area fish pond in the Sea of Flowers. Serving nearly 100 people, MRSG can't leave Zhuangzi, but she can hold a lot of flower viewing banquets, wine, and games, and her life is as happy as a god. What kind of punishment do you think this is? That's too much. All the gossipy ladies shook their heads when they heard what Zhong Mian said. Their eyes were full of sympathy for her, and they became more and more contemptuous of the Fan family's mother-in-law and daughter-in-law. We are all in the capital, who doesn't know whose family affairs? The Fan family prides itself on being a well-known family and has been a noble family for hundreds of years, and there are no scandals in the family. They have always been the ones to laugh at other people's jokes. Today it is rare for everyone to see the Fan family's jokes. They all take the opportunity to add insult to injury and say whatever they want. Ugly. Mrsku's face turned pale. She looked at Zhong Mian imploringly, and kept shaking her head at her. Zhong Mian had a good impression of his second sister-in-law, so he gave her face and shut up immediately. Princess Lanjiao was unwilling to give in. She must deal with Qi Yuan. Come here and smash her face into pieces for me. Dressed as a mother-in-law, she leads the whole family to turn over. Author, Bamboo Fence Tea. Chapter 324. Chapter 324, Totally Shameless. She was shocked and her tone was a little higher. Princess. If my granddaughter does anything wrong, I am willing to accept the punishment for her. Princess Lanjiao sneered, okay. Then I'll punish you too. She was confused. At her age, she also had a mandate. How could Princess Lanjiao dare? Seeing that things were getting worse, the old lady had to stand up and said, Princess. Princess Lanjiao turned her head, immediately calmed down her temper, and bowed to the old lady in a proper manner. Zheng helped the old lady sit down and asked with a gentle face, why did the princess go to war? When mentioning this matter, Princess Lanjiao was so angry that she glared at Qi Yuan, that bitch. She actually slandered the fiancé of a border guard soldier in public. How can I bear it? Everyone was in an uproar and looked at Qi Yuan in disbelief. She was even more shocked. She thought Princess Lanjiao was trying to embarrass Qi Yuan because she was standing in for Zhong Mian. This reason was beyond her expectation. Qi Yuan shook her head in horror and denied, I didn't. You didn't." Princess Longjia became even more angry, her voice became sharp, she pointed at her and asked sternly, "What was the last thing you just said to Miss Zhou? Say it loudly." It was only later that we found out that MRSG actually hired kidnappers to kidnap her niece. How could a person with such a bad behavior be the mother-in-law of my Huang family daughter? Qi Yuan finally remembered. Before she could speak, she frowned and said, "Princess, my grandson came to Beijing just for marriage. What's the problem?" Qi Yuan's mind was very confused. She couldn't remember what she said. However, Ying'er beside her remembered something and reminded her in a low voice, "Miss, you told me about the eldest son's engagement." Zhao's words can be regarded as a scolding for Qi Yuan. After today, she will not be able to see anyone in the capital. When we learned about these things, we rushed to Kuzhu to express our attitude. Who would have thought that the Qi family was so shameless that they insisted on making a fuss and asked our family to give an explanation and everyone could comment on it. In the end, the Qi family covered up these scandals. Who is right and who is wrong? It's good that we didn't ask the Qi family for an explanation. How can you have the nerve to make trouble with us? A girl will do whatever it takes to achieve her goals, even doing such despicable things. Fortunately, we stopped the loss in time and did not send the girl into a pit of fire. She shook his head subconsciously, "Impossible. This is impossible." The Huang family clearly agreed to marry their daughter to my grandson. Everyone in the Fan family was shocked. Fart, MRS Zhao suddenly rushed out of the crowd and roared angrily, "MRS Fan, I don't want to argue with you because you are an elder. I didn't expect you to be so shameless and slander my niece's reputation in public. In this case, let's talk about it." Yes. Our Huang family originally intended to marry the Qi family of Kuzhu. After all, the Qi family is related to the Fan family and the Zhong family, so the family tradition will not be much different. However, before our two families were officially engaged, the Qi family caused many scandals. Princess Longjia laughed angrily, "I don't care about your grandson's engagement, but your granddaughter shouldn't drag Miss Huang into trouble. Did you know that Miss Huang Ro has been engaged to General Wen Ziwen, the Deputy General of the Northwest Army? This marriage is about King Ding is the matchmaker himself, and with the Qi family and the wife of Xiang, the Deputy General of the Northwest, she really doesn't know how to live or die." MRS She was angry and resentful. She hugged Qi Yuan who was crying uncontrollably. She looked so pitiful, MRS Huang. Everyone makes mistakes. My little daughter was wrong back then, but she also knew she was wrong and she has changed since then. You have made a new start and have never done anything wrong again. Why are you holding on to the past so much? Today I have finally understood that you are so anxious to distance yourself from the Qi family, that you are so anxious to offend our Fan family. The old lady couldn't stand listening any longer and snorted coldly, "MRS Fan is stunned. The Northwest Army is all tough men, open and honest. If you feel dissatisfied, just ask the Queen to make the decision for you. Don't make bad assumptions about others and ruin the reputation of the Fan family." Xi's face changed slightly. She was angry for a moment and accidentally said everything she was thinking. Seeing the ladies around her pointing at her, she almost fainted. Just as he was thinking about how to step down, the Queen and Princess Yongyang came. Everyone quickly stood up and saluted. Seeing the Queen's ugly face, the old lady shook her head secretly. The Fan family didn't know if it was because of the bad times, but because everything happened to be rushed together, things today would be difficult to solve. Before the Queen could ask, Princess Longjia ran to the Queen angrily and complained, accusing Xi of relying on her old age, confusing right and wrong, being arrogant and being disrespectful to the elderly. The Queen knew what happened a long time ago, and now it was just a formality. She immediately scolded Xi and Pei rudely, asked them to apologize to Zhao, and ordered them to go back and properly discipline the girls in the mansion. It is self-evident who this girl refers to. Mrs. She has always been respected by others when she went out these years. This was the first time she was embarrassed in front of everyone. Her old face was so red that it was almost bleeding. She wanted to dig a crack in the ground and crawl in. She wanted to go back immediately, but the queen and princess came, and the queen and princess were not there. Let's go, if they leave now, it will definitely be doomed. So the family had to bite the bullet and return to their seats. The ladies who were sitting with them talking before all disappeared. The remaining 4 people sat alone at a table, which was very conspicuous. Mrs. Gu could even detect the strange glances and gossips surrounding them, which made her feel ashamed. Princess Yongyang and other Fan family members left and immediately waved to Zhong Mian. Zhong Mian blinked and obediently stepped forward to salute, but was pulled up by Princess Yongyang. Why are you being so polite to me? Why didn't you see you being so cautious when you were calculating my money in Kuzhu Mansion? Princess, spare your life. Zhong Mian was able to bend and stretch, but she immediately gave in. Princess Yanjiang's eyes were full of smiles. Tell me the interesting things about Kuzhu Prefecture, and I will spare you. Zhong Mian was stunned for a moment, then reacted quickly and vividly told Princess Yongyang about the incident where she and Yang Xiahua were in danger on the passenger ship. I heard that the ladies present looked nervous and breathed rapidly. Everyone was so excited by Zhong Mian that even Princess Lanjia forgot about her anger just now. The queen looked at the table amusedly, and asked Zhang Ning in a low voice, "Is this girl Fan Si's poor daughter?" Zhang Ning was stunned for a moment, thinking that Fan Si should be Fan's maiden name, and immediately nodded, "It's her." The queen sighed. When Fan Si lost her child, she wrote to me asking for help. I didn't expect that so many years have passed and her unlucky girl has grown so big. The queen had a good relationship with Fan Si before she got married. Part of the reason for reprimanding she so harshly just now was to vent her anger on Fan Si. Dressed as a mother-in-law, she leads the whole family to turn over. Author, Bamboo Fensti. Chapter 325. Chapter 325 Fan Tongsha reprimanded. Zhang Ning's eyes flashed with a trace of depression, and he felt that this matter was reasonable. The queen whispered a few words to the nanny, and the nanny immediately went over to say a few words to Zhong Mian. Zhong Mian obediently stood up and walked to the queen to salute. When Qi Yuan saw this scene, she was so jealous that she cut off her fingernails. She could no longer maintain the pitiful look on her face. Why? Why was she reprimanded by the queen in public, and Zhong Mian was treated gently by the queen? It was clear that both of their mothers were legitimate daughters of the Fan family, so why were they treated so differently? She refuses to accept it? The queen here asked Zhong Mian a few questions. Seeing that she was generous and measured in her advances and retreats, she became more and more admiring. She couldn't help but make a few remarks. I don't want to talk about people's right and wrong, but your parents and family are not around to take care of you. I still want to remind you of some things. Although your mother is the eldest daughter of the Fan family, she was raised in the house of the old lady of the Fan family when she was born. She did not have a deep relationship with your grandmother, so your grandmother favored her younger daughter, the one from the Qi family. Although the 2 sisters share the same mother, they have not been close since they were children. Your grandmother has a high spirit and has always been dissatisfied with the old lady of the Fan family. She has to compete with her to raise children. She has asked the Qi family to compare with your mother since she was a child. That one was also raised crookedly by your grandmother. I am telling you these old things because the daughter of the Qi family has also come to the capital this time. With your grandmother's unpredictable temper, she is very likely to cause trouble for you. The word filial piety is suppressed. No matter how reasonable you are, you can't avoid it. The best way is to go home quickly and don't stay in the capital for a long time. Zhou Mian did not expect that the queen would care about her so much and say so much. She immediately knelt down gratefully and kowtowed to the queen. Mian, remember, Mian will leave the capital when the flower viewing banquet is over. Zhang Ning followed and said, Queen, don't worry. The emperor has rewarded me with several zhuangzi. When I return, I will ask Mian to move to the zhuangzi. She will tell the public that she has something urgent at home and will leave first. When I leave for Kuzhu Mansion, pick her up again. The ladies in the garden were all attracted by the jewelry box. Princess Yongyang generously let her keep it. I have a lot of things. I just have a jewelry box for you to play with. When you return to Kuzhu Mansion, if you get anything good, don't forget to leave it for me one serving. Princess Yongyang was in a good mood. After chatting with Zhou Mian, she immediately turned her attention to Yang Xiahua, and the four little girls soon started playing together. The queen smiled and said, You have always been successful, so I have nothing to worry about if this child follows you. Zhou Mian kowtowed to the queen again obediently, and left with the jewelry box in her arms. Definitely, Zhou Mian responded solemnly. Princess, this hairpin is so beautiful. Zhou Mian's big moist eyes were full of joy. That Zhou Mian was a little embarrassed looking at things. The queen said a few words to the nanny next to her, and soon the nanny brought over a double-layered wood-carved white jade jewelry box. Princess Yongyang stepped forward excitedly, opened it for her, took out a gold butterfly hairpin inlaid with precious stones and inserted it into Zhou Mian's head. She laughed happily, It looks good. This is what a daughter of a noble family should wear. Princess Yongyang was even more proud. Most of the things in this jewelry box belong to me, how can it not be beautiful? Princess Yongyang hurriedly urged Zhou Mian to express her gratitude. The queen smiled and said to Zhou Mian, I left the palace in a hurry today, and I didn't expect to see your child again. This box is something I always take with me when I leave the palace. Please keep it well. Coupled with Princess Longjio's intention to make friends, the atmosphere here is rarely harmonious and joyful. Qi Yuan was angry and cried at this scene. She only thought that she was feeling uncomfortable because she had just been scolded by the queen, and patted the back of her hand comfortingly, with a gloomy look on her face. After the flower viewing banquet, Mr. Shi left immediately with his daughter-in-law, granddaughter and grandson. As soon as the group of people entered the house, the housekeeper came forward in a panic and said, Old madam, I'm waiting in the front hall. Shi's expression changed, he paused in his steps, nodded slightly with the housekeeper, and asked in a low voice, What did the master say? The steward shook his head and said, The master has said no more than 3 sentences since he came back. She knew immediately why Fan Tongshu was waiting for her, and she wanted to escape. Mrs. Pei noticed her intention and immediately raised her voice, Mom, Dad is already waiting for us, so let's go in quickly. She was furious and glared at Pei Shi fiercely, as if he wanted to eat someone. Mrs. Pei held her chest in fear, with an innocent look on her face, Mother, what do you think of me like that? Come in. Fan Tongshu's calm voice was calm and not intimidating. She had to lead everyone in obediently even if he didn't want to. Why did you suddenly come back so early today? She felt guilty and sat down beside Fan Tongshu. Fan Tongshu picked up the teacup without haste, took a sip, and suddenly slammed the teacup to the ground, causing the splashed debris to fall on Pei's face. Ms. Pei screamed and subconsciously touched her face. When she lowered her head and saw blood on her hands, she immediately panicked, What happened to my face? Fan's Hiren shouted outside the house, Are all the people here dead? The eldest lady is injured. Fan Tongshu stared at Fan's Hiren with scarlet eyes, What are you in a hurry for? Dad, Fan's Hiren was stunned for a moment, then hurriedly defended, My son is just worried about Mr. Pei. Worried? Why didn't you see you worried when she embarrassed the Fan family so much? Now that she has only scratched her skin, you know you are worried. Fan Tongshu had a sarcastic look on his face, and his eyes were full of disappointment and dissatisfaction with his eldest son. Fan Hiren's expression turned green and white. Dad, it is indeed Pei who did something wrong today. My son will admit her mistake for her. She followed Fan Hiren's words and said, Sir, I made a mistake too. I will go back with you and reflect on it. Ms. Pei was already angry when her face was hurt, but now she heard the mother and son put the main fault on her. She immediately quit, got up angrily, with an accusatory look on her face. What does today's matter have to do with me? Where am I? Didn't do it right. Fan Hiren's face turned pale and he kept winking at Mr. Pei. Ms. Pei ignored her and continued to make a fuss. It was obvious that my mother wanted to plot against the Huang family and spread the news about the engagement between the Qi family and the Huang family through the flower viewing party, so that the Huang family suffered a loss and had to agree to the marriage. I didn't say a word from beginning to end. It was Qi Yuan who wanted the marriage. Qi Yuan was the cause of the disaster. The idea was the mother's, but it ended up in your mouth. Did I do something wrong? Am I, Pei Xianglian, that mean? If anything happens, I'll be the one to take care of it. The more he talked about Ms. Pei, the more wronged he became and the more he cried. Seeing that there was no room for change, Fan Hiren became angry and asked, Do you dare to say that you have no selfish motives in reprimanding me and Mian in front of the Queen? You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Dressed as a mother-in-law, she leads the whole family to turn over. Author, Bamboo Fensti. Chapter 326. Chapter 326, Being Blamed for More Than 10 Years. Ms. Pei felt a little guilty, but it was only for a moment. When she saw Fan Hiren holding on to her fault, she broke the pot and shouted at the top of her lungs, Yes. I just hate Fan Ci and the daughter she gave birth to. How about that? I wanted to do it back then. If it weren't for Fan Ci, my first child wouldn't have died inexplicably. I was kind enough not to kill her daughter to avenge my child. This is what the Fan family owes me. Who do you have the right to accuse me? Fan Hiren's chest hurt from anger, and he subconsciously glanced at Shi, who immediately looked away. Fan Hiren had to suppress his anger and persuaded, Okay. Stop talking, go back and take care of your wounds first. Ms. Pei was also worried that something might happen to her face. Even though she was unwilling to do so, she turned around and walked away angrily. Fan Tongshu's face was so gloomy that he was almost dripping with water. Fan Hiren knew that his father was angry, so he could only wink at Fan Ziquan and ask him to come over and plead with him. As a result, Fan Tongshu didn't give them a chance to speak at all. He just looked at the Qi brothers and sisters with a neutral expression. Do you remember what you told me when you came to the capital? Qi Yuan lowered his head and remained silent. Fan Tongshu slammed the table and said, Say. Qi Yuan was so frightened that he trembled and said solemnly, Yuan can't continue to study in Kuzhu Academy. He can only go to Beijing to ask his grandfather to take him in. Yuan will study hard and strive to be admitted to the imperial examination as soon as possible. Fan Tongshu was speechless to the brother and sister who couldn't figure out the situation. He couldn't even get angry. He only ordered, Send Mr. Biao and Miss Biao back to Kuzhu Mansion in 3 days. Is this how you study for fame? You are a dignified man with no ambition to make progress, and spend all your time with your women. You just tell me how many books you have read since you came to the capital? What do you understand? Fan Tongshu stared at him intently. He followed Qi Yuan and didn't give him a chance to ask for help. Qi Yuan threw herself at Qi's feet. Grandma, Grandma, we can't go back, my father won't let us off lightly. Qi Yuan was also frightened and kowtowed. Grandpa, we really know we were wrong. Please give us another chance. Fan Ziquan didn't want to get involved in these nonsense at all, but he also knew she's temper. If he didn't agree, she would have many ways to test him, so he could only agree with a dark face. Fan Tongsha turned around angrily and scolded, "They are all the you pampered. They are just as careless as their mother. If I had known you didn't know how to teach children, I shouldn't have let you raise a daughter in the first place. From today on, you will shut yourself up and reflect on your mistakes. You are not allowed to step out of the house without my order." She was also reluctant to let her two grandsons go back and suffer, so she wiped her tears immediately and told Fan Ziquan, "First take Yuyan and Waner to Biwan to avoid the limelight. If your father asks, just tell them that they have gone home. Others leave it to me to deal with it." "Grandpa, Yuyan can't go back. If I just go back like this, my father will definitely give up on me," Chi Yuyan cried helplessly. Seeing that he couldn't answer, Fan Tongsha shook his head and said, "Go home, I won't leave any useless waste here." As soon as Fan Tongsha left, she burst into tears, scolding Fan Tongsha for scolding her late mother-in-law, as well as Fan Ci and Zhong Mian. No one she disliked was left out, and they were all scolded. She wanted to speak but stopped talking several times. Because he was afraid of Fan Tongshu, he had to endure it. "Master, Mr. She stood up hastily. Seeing that they were all gone, Gu was about to get up and leave, but she was stopped by Shi. "You go to the Guang'an Marquis mansion to bring Mian back to me. If she doesn't agree, she will say that I am sick. I want to see how arrogant that girl can be. The girl who is not well disciplined by the Zhong family, I take care of them." She clenched his fists fiercely. From her point of view, part of the reason for their disgrace today was caused by the Huang family, and part of it was caused by Zhong Mian, a junior, who could let her, an elder, suffer such a big loss. How could she bear it? Gu was shocked. "Mom, isn't this bad?" She stared at her without comment. "Go if I tell you to." Gu pursed her lips, clenched her hands tightly under her sleeves, blessed Fulai meekly and left. Only she and Fan Ziquan were left in the front hall. Fan Ziquan frowned immediately. "Mom, I told you, do everything after 3 or 4 steps, why can't you remember it? If you have the means, I will admit it, but if you don't have the means, you still follow other people's calculations. How can you do it now? If the plan fails, it will be embarrassing. If today's incident comes to the ears of the emperor, it will most likely affect my and my second brother's assessment next year. What are you trying to do?" She was dissatisfied with her son's rebuke, angry and aggrieved. "Your wife disrespects me, your father doesn't give me face, and you even yelled at me, right?" Fan Ziquan was so angry that he almost vomited blood, and his voice rose several degrees. "Mom, let's discuss the matter, don't mess around. If I didn't respect you, I wouldn't have agreed when you asked the eldest sister to take the blame for Pei's miscarriage. Got it? Just because you are my mother, you spoke, and I listened no matter how unhappy I was. Think about it carefully, from the past to the present, which one of the things I did against my will had nothing to do with my little sister? She is a scourge." "Shut up. That's your sister, how can you say that to her?" She was so angry that he spoke without hesitation, pointing at Fan Ziquan's head. When Gu saw them at the door and heard everything they said, she was so frightened that she quickly covered her mouth and ran away. She definitely can't go to the Guang'an Marquis mansion. If she does go, it will leave a bad impression on Guang'an Marquis. Mian may even blame her for it. If she doesn't go, she will have to think of ways to save herself. The best choice is Pei Shi. Gu hurriedly came to the main room. As soon as she entered the door, she saw that the doctor had just finished applying medicine to Pei. The house was in a mess. It was obvious that Mr. Pei had just vented his anger. Mrs. Gu stepped forward with a worried look on her face. Sister-in-law, what did the doctor say? Mrs. Pei glared at Mrs. Gu angrily. Are you here to see my joke? Don't think that she doesn't know what Mr. Gu's temperament is. She may seem gentle and talkative, but in fact she is the deepest in the city. No way, Mrs. Gu looked innocent. I came here because I just overheard my mother-in-law and my eldest brother saying something. It was really scary. It would be unfair to my sister-in-law if I didn't say it. I'm also afraid that my sister-in-law will blame me for being nosy, and my eldest brother will cause trouble for me afterwards. Wouldn't it be wrong no matter what I do? If you fart, hurry up. Mr. Pei was not so patient and had the patience to give in to Mr. Gu. Mrs. Gu sighed, struggled a bit, and gritted her teeth. I just heard from my eldest uncle that it was my sister-in-law who caused your miscarriage back then, not your eldest sister-in-law. It was your mother-in-law who begged your eldest uncle to hide it and made your eldest sister-in-law the scapegoat. What? Mrs. Pei was shocked and angry. She stood up angrily and stared at Mr. Gu. Is everything you said true? Mrs. Gu nodded desperately and swore, what I said is what I heard with my own ears. If even one sentence is false, there will be lightning from heaven. I'm going to settle the score with that dead old woman now. Pei gritted his teeth and rushed out. Dressed as a mother-in-law, she leads the whole family to turn over. Author, Bamboo Fence Tea. Chapter 327. Chapter 327. Pei shows off his power. Mrs. Gu used all her strength to stop Ms. Pei, and said breathlessly, Sister-in-law, please be patient. You rushed over to challenge your mother-in-law in such a rage, and you are not the one who suffered the loss. Besides, my eldest brother is so filial, knowing that you are disobedient to your mother-in-law, how can I spare you? Ms. Pei stopped angrily. Then what do you think we should do? Mrs. Gu sat down again, straightened her clothes, leaned over meaningfully, and whispered, Qiyuan and Qiyuan were sent to a separate garden by her mother-in-law. My father-in-law asked them to leave the capital. What do you think we should do? Mrs. Pei realized it immediately and looked at her suspiciously. What do you want to do after telling me so much? What Gu did was clearly to use Pei as a spearman. Naturally, Pei saw it clearly, but even if she knew Gu's purpose, she would still do it, otherwise it would be difficult to let go of her hatred. Mrs. Gu's handsome brows furrowed, a little more melancholy. I can't help it. My mother-in-law has lost such a big face today and is angry with me and Mian as a child. She has to ask me to go to Guang'an Marquis Mansion to bring Mian back. Sister-in-law also saw it today. Mian is a person whose name has been registered in front of the queen. Mother-in-law, as Mian's grandmother, can ignore her filial piety and oppress her children. Can we do it? What if Mian complains to those nobles in the future and the nobles anger the Fan family? The futures of our eldest uncle and our second grandfather cannot be ruined like this. Mr. Gu's words are really an exaggeration, but it is indeed easy for the censor to get caught by such troubles, which will affect the future of the two masters of the Fan family. Mr. Pei took a deep breath, calmed down, and asked Mrs. Gu to go back first. I didn't come to the door until it was almost done. Mrs. Gu laughed and shook her head. If Mian went to the Fan family, I don't know what unexpected things my mother-in-law would do. Now that Mian is in her teens, it would be inappropriate to go to the Fan family. Zhang Ning listened to the queen's reminder and was already prepared. He thought that the Fan family would send a servant to come, or the Pei family who was watching the excitement and not taking it too seriously. Unexpectedly, what came was Gu, who was usually silent and had no sense of presence. Firstly, I want to thank Mr. Ho for taking care of Mian during this period. Secondly, I want to apologize to Mr. Ho for my mother-in-law and sister-in-law, and I also ask Mr. Ho to accept it. The two of them talked tacitly for a while, and then Gu Shi left. Zhang Ning's face finally looked better. You are a rare sober person in the Fan family. Zhang Ning sighed. To be honest, Mian packed up his luggage and set off back to Kuzhu Mansion after the flower viewing party. Even if MRS Fan came to ask me for the person in person, I couldn't hand him over. Zhang Ning raised his eyebrows. Aren't you going to take Mian back? MRS Fan is here for Mian, Zhang Ning directly pointed out the other party's purpose. In order to show her sincerity, MRS Gu even spent her own money to buy a set of pearl noodles from the largest Zhenbao pavilion in the capital, which cost her 200 taels of silver. She then went to the cloth store to select some good materials. The two young masters of Inho's family are studying and bought some 4 treasures of the study. So fast, MRS Gu was a little surprised, but she had to admire Zhang Ning's ability to predict things. Seeing Zhang Ning's expression of concern, Gu hurriedly explained, "But don't worry, Mr. Ho, I am here mainly to apologize. There are some things here for Mr. Ho and Mian. MRS Gu smiled happily and nodded. Master Ho is a smart man, so I won't beat around the bush with you. Grandma Mian is looking for her. I didn't want to come, but with the word filial piety on my head, if I didn't go on this trip, I can't explain it when I go back. Master Ho is so complimentary." MRS Gu covered her mouth and chuckled. Mr. Gu left the main courtyard and had to go to the Guang'an Marquis mansion in order to give an explanation to Ms. Shi. However, she did not go to bring Zhou Mian back, but went to apologize to the Fan family. She has been waiting for news from Gu, wondering how Zhou Mian would give her a slap in the face when she saw him soon. She waited and waited until she was almost impatient, but Gu didn't come back. She was feeling unhappy when she heard from her servants that MRS Gu had come back alone without Zhou Mian. MRS She was furious and was about to accuse Mr. Gu who came in, but she heard Mr. Gu innocently say, "Mother, my daughter-in-law went to Guang'an Mansion to find Mian according to your instructions. Unfortunately, her daughter-in-law was a step too late. Mian had already left the city and returned to Kuzhu Mansion. She was furious. It's obvious that Guang'an doesn't want you to take away the child. You believe this nonsense?" MRS Gu was speechless. "Mom. My daughter-in-law is not stupid. Naturally, she sent someone to inquire. Mian really left the city 2 hours ago. She seemed to be in a hurry. Even if we send someone to chase her now, it is not certain. Can catch up." Shi's chest felt tight, and he swept the tea trays on the table angrily. "Trash. You can't handle such a thing. What use do you have?" Mr. Gu's face was so red that it almost bled, but she was not ashamed but angry. At this moment, the housekeeper came in with a panic look and reported, "Old madam, what's wrong? My cousin was forcibly abducted by a group of thieves." "What? What did you say?" Shi's eyes were about to burst, and the world spun for a while, and he fell straight down. The people in the main courtyard turned on their backs. MRS Gu pretended to be worried, but in reality she was just talking. Shi's sons, daughters-in-law, grandsons and granddaughters all rushed to the main courtyard to guard it. In the evening, the sent out to rescue people came back and reported, "Old madam, we have found out that the young master cousin and the young lady cousin were kidnapped into a carriage. The other party seems to be taking them back to Kuzhu Mansion by force." Shi's pale face flashed with astonishment. "Who did it? Listen carefully, her voice is still trembling." The guard glanced at Ms. Pei bravely and did not dare to say anything. There is something else that Shi and Fans Hiren don't understand. Fans Hiren immediately raised his hand. Pei did not hide but moved towards him, staring at him with a look of resentment. That look in his eyes made Fans Hiren feel cold in his heart. No matter how hard he slapped him, he could not get rid of it, leaving only deep anger and confusion. "Why are you doing this?" MRS Pei screamed urgently, "You ask me why? I also want to ask you why I lost my child back then. Did Fan see I kill my child or Fan Lian? You look into my eyes and say. Mr. Pei had veins all over his body and his face turned red, as if he was trying to fight with others. Fan's Hiren was so frightened that he took a step back, his eyes flickered, and he said with lack of confidence, "Don't you know everything?" "What do I know? I should know that you and your mother worked together to deceive me and make me blame Fan Ci for more than 10 years, right? That Fan Lian caused me to have a miscarriage, and I let her give birth to 2. What's wrong with suffering a little?" Mr. Pei said with a mocking smile on his face. All Fan's Hiren's scolding words were stuck in his throat, unable to be spoken or swallowed. She started crying and slapping her thighs. "Oh! Why is my life so miserable? My family is unfortunate and I married such a vicious wife. What will the descendants of my Fan family do? Fan's Hiren has 1 head and 2 heads." Pei sneered, "Yes. The Fan family is indeed unfortunate to have a partial daughter-in-law like you. My sister-in-law is so pitiful. If she knew that her biological mother had harmed her in this way, would she be so angry that she would sever ties with the Fan family? Oh, by the way. Does Dad know this? You have to let Dad know. Let Dad take a good look at what poisonous woman he married. Dressed as a mother-in-law, she leads the whole family to turn over." Author, Bamboo Fensti. Chapter 328. Chapter 328 Arriving at Kuzhu Prefecture. "Shut up," Fan's Hiren slapped Pei so hard that stars appeared in her eyes. The room was so quiet that you could hear a pin drop. Pei reacted and glared at the overwhelmed Fan's Hiren bitterly. He rushed over and knocked him down with all his strength. He then sat on Fan's Hiren and scratched him desperately. "If you hit me, if you dare to hit me, I will beat you to death. I am going to kill you. Oh, stop it quickly, someone is coming, someone is coming." Fan's Hiren shouted for help. She was so angry that he rolled his eyes and shouted out of breath, "Come on, hurry up." Fan's Hequan came to his senses and was about to rush over, but was stopped by Gu, that sister-in-law. "How can you touch her? What should we do then? If we continue to fight, I won't be able to hold on anymore." Fan's Hequan was at a loss. When Gu saw that it was almost over, she ran over and pretended to persuade, "Sister-in-law, that's enough. If you continue to beat me, my uncle won't be able to do it anymore. If you get angry again, you will have the wrongdoer and the debtor. You can't let yourself be a widow, right?" She knew that old Prince Rui regarded Zhong'an as his own son, but she didn't expect that he would take Zhong'an so seriously. Looking back, he saw that Fan's Hiren had been beaten as hard as a pig's head. He cursed in his heart that he deserved it. He pretended to shed a few tears and ran away on the pretext of looking for a doctor. She realized later that her daughter-in-law had no one she could rely on, and she was so angry that she couldn't bear to fall ill. She even slapped the edge of the bed and cried loudly, "My family is unlucky, my family is unlucky." Zhong Mian, who was hiding in the village, was enjoying the delicious food. Hearing the farce of the Fan family, he happily took several more bites. All the juniors were trembling with fright at Pei's crazy appearance. Pei's son and daughter even had white faces and shaky faces, with tears in their eyes. Zhang Ning also knew about the Fan family's affairs immediately, but he didn't say much. He only discussed the return journey with Zhong'an beside him. "Do you really want Mr. Rui to go with us?" These words were repeated over and over again, which made Gu's ears get calloused. She winked at a few children and asked them to go out first. Fan's Hiren was sore all over and struggled to get up from the ground. When he heard this, he fell down again in anger. Pei almost ran out of energy from the beating. She walked down the pole given by Gu and got off Fan's Hiren panting. She was still unforgiving and said, "Fan's Hiren, remember this. You, mother and son, owe me. If you want to find trouble with me, I don't mind exposing all the scandals you have done. Mrs. Pei turned around and saw that the two children were frightened, and immediately became anxious. My darling. They bullied others too much, and they are the ones who forced me to do so. Remember, you should have a brother or sister above you. The one who was killed by your sister-in-law must be avenged in the future. In the Guanzhenhou mansion. Zhang An smiled honestly, feeling a little helpless. My godfather said that he was free all his life and didn't like staying in the capital. This time he brought me back and I didn't plan to stay long, but I didn't expect to meet you and be recognized by you. It took such a long time due to a strange combination of circumstances. Now that his wish has been fulfilled, and since I have restored my memory, he has nothing to worry about. Come with me to Kuzhu Prefecture and see your sister-in-law and the others. My godfather also wants to walk around. Zhang Ning's frown deepened. If I remember correctly, the old prince is almost 70 years old. Are you still worried? Zhang An nodded slightly. So I plan to take my godfather to Kuzhu Mansion to persuade him this time. Stay there to retire. If he still wants to run around, I guess I have to go with him. But don't worry, the emperor rewarded me with a lot of money and Zhuangzi's house and shop. I will give all these things to my mother-in-law when I return to Kuzhu. With your sister-in-law, I have nothing to worry about since Da Chun is at home. Zhang Ning's expression changed slightly. At first, because Zhang An had just recovered his memory and was emotionally unstable, she did not tell him about the situation of the Zhang family, and she did not tell him about the good news but not the bad news. But now she can no longer hide it. She slowly lowered her eyelids, her lips trembled slightly, and she made a dry sound. The boat flying the flag of Guanzhenhou went south, from the capital city in midsummer to the crisp autumn air of Kuzhu. Along the way, everyone admired the green mountains by the river, the willows by the lake, and the waves on the sea. Everyone had their own thoughts. No matter how forward the ship is, it will one day reach the shore. Ji Wei, the prefect of Kuzhu, received the news early and sent someone to wait at the port. As soon as Guang and Haofu's ship arrived, there were official messengers to clear the way for them. Brothers Yang Erden came to meet them in a carriage. When the three saw the familiar figure, they immediately rushed over excitedly and shouted in unison, "Auntie!" Zhang Ning followed the sound, and the smile at the corner of his mouth widened infinitely. Dan, 3 irons and 4 villages. The three brothers felt the strange sights around them, their steps froze for a moment, and they ran to Zhang Ning, praying, "Mom, can you call us by our names when we go out? This is not a banyan tree village. Hey! I haven't seen you for a while, and my son is already shy." Zhang Ning joked, turned around and pulled Zhang An, who looked sad, over, and said with the three brothers, "This is my eldest brother, yours dear uncle." Yang Erden and the three of them were stunned, staring at Zhang An in disbelief. Is this the resurrection from the dead? What nonsense are you talking about? Zhang Ning cursed angrily, and the three brothers immediately lowered their heads and called for help. Zhang An was so moved that he couldn't wait to find his daughter after giving the three brothers a meeting gift. Zhang Ning gave him a hand and led him over to see the prefect Ji Wei, and the two exchanged a few words. Ji Wei made a respectful gesture of invitation. "Master Marquis, I have prepared some thin wine for you to catch the wind and wash away the dust. Please move on." Naturally, she couldn't refuse this kind of thing, but Zhang An was eager to return, so Zhang Ning could only point to the boat and whispered with Ji Wei, "Master Ji, I am in Kuzhu Mansion. You can invite me anytime. Today I have something important to do, so I can't go there, but Mr. Rui is on board, so I'd like to trouble you to entertain him." Ji Wei was frightened. The old prince is here too? Why didn't anyone tell me this in advance? Where does the old prince want to stay? But I have to send someone to prepare for it. Zhang Ning hurriedly stopped him. Master Ji, don't panic, old Prince Rui is coming with us and will stay at Dongli Villa. All you need to do is entertain him with good wine and food, and then send him back to Dongli Villa after the prince is delicious. I understand, sir. Ji Wei bowed respectfully and hurried to the boat to pick him up. Zhang Ning explained to the three brothers Yang Erden and entrusted the remaining people to them, and then took Zhang An alone to the Zhang family restaurant. When I found Hangkou village, not long after Da Chun's accident happened, his mother-in-law, who had just given birth to a child, wanted to remarry regardless. In addition, the villagers of Hangkou village put pressure on them. Life was really difficult, so I picked them up. Dongli Villa, my mother didn't want to live under someone else's roof all the time, so I bought land for them to build a house in Xinghua village. I also helped Xiao Kaiu and his wife open this restaurant in the east of the city, but the shop is rented, not owned by us. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Dressed as a mother-in-law, she leads the whole family to turn over. Author, Bamboo Fensti. Chapter 329. Chapter 329 Family Reunion. Although Zhang An had already heard about the family affairs from Zhang Ning, now standing in this familiar hometown, with familiar local accents echoing in his ears, and hearing the tragic experience of his family again, he suddenly burst into tears and choked with sobs. While talking, the two of them arrived at the restaurant. Before they even entered, they could see the bustling diners inside, with the sound of clinking pottery bowls and endless chatter and laughter. In the past, the restaurant was only run by Xian and Zhang Xiaokaiu. As the business got better and better, they were obviously too busy. Now the store has hired a waiter and a woman to help kill fish. The waiter saw the Zhangning brother and sister who came in and were dressed in noble clothes. He didn't dare to neglect them. He immediately came forward to greet them warmly. "Sir, what do you want to eat? Our restaurant has boiled fish, pickled vegetables, fish with distiller's grains, grilled fish, and cold salad. Seafood is the signature of our store and the price is affordable." Zhang Ning smiled at him and said, "We're here to find your boss's wife." The waiter was stunned for a moment, then nodded and backed away. "Sir, wait a moment, I'll go and invite you." Zhang Xiaokai was pouring wine in the back. He heard the sound and came out quickly. As soon as he opened the curtain, he saw Zhang Ning smiling at her. She was overjoyed and said, "Aunt." She didn't notice Zhang An until she ran to Zhang Ning. When her eyes saw Zhang An's face, her head exploded. "Abba! Abba!" Zhang Xiaokai fell back in shock. Fortunately, the waiter was right behind her and helped her up in time. The three of them walked to the port in silence, where a carriage was waiting. Zhang Xiaokai burst into tears again after hearing these words. When they got on the carriage, Zhang Ning saw Zhang Xiaokai's tense expression and knew that this girl was thinking the wrong way. She sighed helplessly, "I know what you are thinking, but the truth is not like that. Your father was fortunately saved by a noble man after his accident, but because of his injury, he suffered too much amnesia, and he didn't know who he was all these years, until I met him when he was living in the capital." Xian Kun hurriedly put his arms around her shoulders. Although he cried too, he kept comforting her. "It's a happy event that Daddy is back. Why are you crying?" Zhang An nodded heavily with tears in his eyes. "Xian Kun, I'm back." The carriage stopped at the door of Jiang's house. Tao and Guo were sitting in the thatched shed in the courtyard, watching the flowers and Zhang Changkong chasing and playing. When they saw Zhang Xiaokai coming back in a hurry, they asked in surprise, "Who is here? Look at how excited you are." Zhang Ning nodded and pulled Zhang Xiaokai out of the restaurant. Zhang Xiaokai was the first to rush out of the carriage and excitedly rushed into the yard and shouted, "Grandma, Grandma, look who's back." On the way to Xinghua village, Zhang Ning heard his father and daughter crying. Woo woo woo, Zhang Xiaokai covered her mouth and broke down crying. He looked around and said to Zhang Ning, "Dad, Aunt, this is not the place to talk. You take Xiaokai back first, and I will just guard the store." The imperial doctor began to treat him last year, but there was no success until the child Xiahua came to the capital and treated him for a period of time before he regained his memory. Zhang An felt so uncomfortable that he could only wipe away his tears. If he never remembers who he is, I dare not bring him back, lest your grandmother and your mother-in-law find out and be even more sad. Xian Kun also had a look of disbelief when he saw Zhang An, but his reaction was calmer than Zhang Xiaokai's. Although his voice was trembling, he still asked his doubts, "Dad?" It's just that he couldn't figure out the situation in front of him. The customers in the store were looking here, so he rushed to the back kitchen and called Xian Kun over. As soon as Tao finished speaking, she saw a familiar figure at the door. Her eyes touched the person's eyes. She stood up and started to move forward tremblingly. Ms. Guo could only take a look at the man standing at the door, but she couldn't make out his appearance clearly. Seeing her mother-in-law being so excited, she followed him and walked over. "Niang, mother-in-law, I'm back," Zhang An shouted with all his strength. Tao Shi had already rushed in front of him, threw away the crutch, and grabbed Zhang An's arm. Her old hands touched Zhang An's face several times to confirm that there was really a living person in front of her. Tao couldn't hold himself any longer and cried until he collapsed. Ms. Guo had already collapsed on the ground. Zhang Xiaokai was afraid that her eyes would get damaged from crying, so she shouted sternly, "Don't cry, don't shed tears." Guo just shed a few tears when she was frightened back by Zhang Xiaokai. The family entered the main room and were speechless for a while. Zhang Changkong held the sepak takraw ball and looked up at Zhang An curiously with his little head. Zhang An looked at the little face that was similar to his son, and immediately went over to pick him up. His arms were strong and he protected the child in his arms. His eyes were full of pity and love. "Your name is Changkong, right?" Zhang Changkong nodded obediently. Zhang An raised the corners of his mouth slightly and said lovingly, "I am your grandpa, my name is Grandpa." "Grandpa!" Zhang Changkong shouted softly, and all the adults almost couldn't help but want to cry again. Zhang Ning stood outside the door for a moment, and then slowly entered after seeing that there was no sound inside. When Hua saw it, he immediately knelt down and saluted, "I have seen you, madam. Get up." "Hua, thank you for your hard work. We'll take care of Changkong. You go back to the villa to find Grandma Yu, and explain to the people in the village that there will be a banquet at Dongli Villa in the evening." Hua wrote down everything Zhang Ning told her and left quickly. In the house, Tao Shi and Guo Shi were quietly listening to Zhang An's story about what happened after he fell into the water. Mrs. Tao did not expect that her son survived the catastrophe and became a beggar for several years. He was also recognized as his godson by a nobleman. For a moment, he didn't know whether to be happy or sad. Ms. Guo looked sad, but she didn't dare to cry. After a while, she asked, "Then you will leave when you come back?" Zhang An didn't want to fool the family he owed money to, so he looked a little hesitant. "Of course I don't want to leave, but my godfather is old and wants to travel around. I feel uneasy letting him go out alone. I'll try to persuade my godfather. If it's best if your godfather wants to stay." Zhang Xiaokai was a little angry. "Dad, if your godfather is leaving, do you want to go with him? Why have you become so snobbish?" "Xiaokai," Zhang Ning looked at her seriously. Zhang Xiaokai pursed her lips in grievance, sniffed, and turned away. "What I said is right. When my father had an accident, my grandma and grandma almost couldn't hold on. Our whole family was struggling hard, and now my father is back. Don't care about us anymore. Zhang Ning took a deep breath helplessly. You only know that my eldest brother is recognized as a godson by a noble man, but do you know who this noble man is? Zhang Xiaokai said nothing. Ms. Guo was obviously worried and couldn't help but ask, is the other person more noble than you? Zhang Ning nodded heavily. The other party is the emperor's uncle, a serious prince. Even the emperor must respect him. It is his good fortune that the eldest brother can fall in the eyes of the old prince. It is the good fortune of our Zhang family, plus the old prince. It is said that every drop of water will repay the favor of the eldest brother, even if the life-saving grace is taken at the cost of life. Is it too much for the eldest brother to just follow the old prince and take care of him? Dressed as a mother-in-law, she leads the whole family to turn over. Author, Bamboo Fence Tea. Chapter 330. Chapter 330. Granddaughter. Everyone in the Zhang family was frightened by Zhang Ning's words. Guo was the first to express her stance. It's not too much, but it's not too much. Sister-in-law, Xiaokaiu is young and energetic and ignorant. She also feels sorry for me and her grandma. Don't be angry with her. Xiaokaiu, why don't you apologize to your father quickly? Zhang Xiaokaiu burst into tears and admitted her mistake obediently. Zhang An felt uncomfortable. Don't blame Xiaokaiu. You have indeed suffered a lot in these years. It's all my fault for my amnesia. If I hadn't lost my memory, I could have come back earlier to help. Ms. Guo shook her head happily. It's better that you have lost your memory. If you come back, you will definitely go to sea with you when the accident happened in Dachun. If that happens. Guo didn't say any more, but Tao and Zhang Xiaokaiu both turned pale. Mrs. Tao nodded firmly. Xiaokaiu's mother is right. Fortunately, you have lost your memory. Now that you are back, we don't have to go to the sea to make a living. Look at the yard where we live now. There are some fields in the village and there are restaurants in the city. Xiaokaiu and Xingkan alone can earn more money in a year than we can in a lifetime. There are servants sent by Anning and Erden at home to help, so we don't have to do anything. We just watch the children and talk all day long. We live a leisurely life without worrying about anything. Your godfather really wants to leave, you just go with him. You don't have to worry about the family, my mother-in-law can handle it. Zhang An knew that they were living a good life now and was happy for them. He hurried back to the carriage, moved his luggage into the house, and said, when I left the capital, the emperor rewarded me with many good things. I have a house, a field, a shop, etc. in Kuzhu Prefecture. I still have money and things that I can give you. You can make arrangements for me, but I can't use them. Zhang Ning nodded and touched the child's face lovingly. But did you choose a name? Yang Xiao recited the name several times and praised, Mom is still awesome, this name has a good meaning and is grand. The three Tao people were shocked. After carefully confirming the things, the three of them were filled with emotions. At this moment, Zhang Xiaokaiu's resentment towards Zhang An disappeared. She had no other thoughts, she just wanted her grandma and grandma to have enough food and clothing for the rest of their lives. She and Xian Kun had worked hard for so long, but they still felt that they were falling short. Now that Zhang An is here, the burden on her shoulders is suddenly lighter. As soon as the group entered the mansion, a wet nurse came over with a baby in her arms to kowtow to Zhang Ning. Zhang Ning suddenly became happy, he actually trusts me. Okay, let me think about it, this child should have been born in midsummer, and our girl's name will be Yang Wei. Zhang Ning's eyes lit up, and he took it. Seeing how beautiful the child was, he immediately fell in love with it. When was he born? Why didn't anyone send a letter? Sun Yan shook his head, no. Erden said he would wait until you come back to name the child. After the Zhang family talked, Zhang Ning took them to Dongli Villa. The money their family has saved now is not enough to buy so many properties. Zhang An has been missing for several years and brought back so many things in one go. They were all given by the emperor, and no one dared to think about them. Sun Yan pursed her lips and smiled, "Anyang, she has just turned 1 month old and is a girl. My daughter-in-law thought you were on your way back, so she didn't ask Erden to write to you again." As soon as she got off the carriage, she saw a few familiar faces, including Sun Yan and the Zhou family, Yang Area and Yang Fugui. Sun Yan agreed very much. "To be honest, I thought of a few names before, but I always felt that none of them were good. Now I know that the child's name is with a Niang." Ha ha ha! The people in the room were amused and laughed. Zhang Changkong kept clamoring to see his sister in Zhang An's arms, and the room was filled with excitement. At the same time, Gong Hai went to the east of the city to sell fish with the villagers of Hangkou village. He heard many people talking about Jiang's restaurant, but he didn't pay much attention at first. However, after buying the fish, a man from the same village came over to gossip with everyone. "Have you heard about it? The Zhang family who lived in our village before is amazing." Gong Hai's good brother Aping frowned subconsciously. "Why are you so concerned about the Zhang family's affairs? Haven't you seen how badly our village was harmed by the Zhang family?" The man looked worried and murmured, "It's not what I need to care about. Now it's spread all over the street that Zhang Xiaokai's missing father is not dead and is back. He was also dressed very richly." Everyone heard Zhang Xiaokai calling daddy. "Yes, you can't fake it." Oh, and Zhang Xiaokai's aunt, Huang Inho, also came together. Many people saw it. Tisk tisk tisk. What kind of luck do you think the Zhang family had? It became prosperous all of a sudden. Gong Hai, your sister really had no vision back then. If she had stayed in the Zhang family, she would be living like a fairy now. I heard that Grandma Jiang Jiatao and Aunt Guo don't have to do anything now, they just bask in the sun every day, drink tea and snacks, and are still being cared for." Gong Hai couldn't bear to listen, so he turned around and left with the fish basket on his back. Aping hurriedly caught up and advised, "Don't listen to his nonsense. Even if the Zhang family's life is better, it's impossible for the Zhang family to really do nothing and still have maids and servants to wait on them." "Who are you kidding?" Gong Hai said nothing. Aping saw his gloomy expression and didn't know what to say, but he secretly complained that Gong Mei didn't have a happy life. Gong Hai returned home and silently put down the fish basket, then picked out some small fish that were not sold today and packed them away. Gong's mother went back from outside, slammed the door and went back to the house angrily. In the evening, Father Gong also came back. His expression didn't look good. He probably knew about the Zhang family. At this moment, Gong Mei came back with a basket on her back. It had only been a year, and she seemed to have aged several years. She no longer had the freshness she had before marrying into Chinjiakan. Gong's mother frowned and stared at her without blinking, as if interrogating a prisoner repeatedly. "Did Chen Daong hit you again?" Gong Mei's eyes turned red. Gong Hai couldn't bear it any longer and said, "Sister, if it doesn't work out, just let us go." Gong Mei cried muffledly, "What's the point of getting married? The Chen family never wanted to marry me." Fart. If Chen Daong didn't want to marry you, why did he ask someone to come to our house to negotiate matchmaking just after Da Chun died? If it weren't for the Chen family's mother-in-law, she wouldn't be in a hurry to let you leave the Zhang family. Your current suffering is all the Chen family's fault. Why do they dislike you?" Gong Hai was so angry that his chest heaved violently. Gong Mei covered her face and squatted on the ground, crying remorsefully, "What's the use of talking so much now? They have always said that I hurt my body after giving birth and could not bear children, and that I was a hen that could not lay eggs. They also said that I was unlucky, causing Chen Daong to die. At first, it was not too much for the Chen family to force her to marry her, but after 6 months of marriage, her stomach had not moved, and the Chen family began to change their attitude. They openly and secretly ridiculed her for not being able to have children. She secretly went to the doctor for a checkup, and the doctor said that her health no problem. She also explained the situation to the Chen family, but the Chen family always thought she was quibbling, so they punished her even harder, and now it has even gotten to the point of hitting and scolding her, making her life miserable.